Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my review of the upcoming summon showcases, Cursed Connections Part 1 and Cursed Connections Part 2. I'll go over the two adventurers who will be featured across these showcases, as well as the featured dragon, talk about their kits, skills, and abilities, and at the end of the day try to answer the question of whether or not you should summon. Now, these showcases are pretty hotly anticipated since they are featuring limited time adventurers and a limited time dragon, and they're Zodiac showcases. In case you're not aware, across their mini franchises, Cygames tends to feature some special limited time characters at the start of every new year that are associated with the Zodiac animal for that year. So 2021 is the year of the ox, so we have our ox worm clan leader in Dragalia Lost, Seimei, and we also get the appearance of the Rooster Worm Clan leader, since it seems that for years that are still a ways off, Dragalia is willing to introduce those characters a little bit sooner. So last year was the year of the rat or mouse, and we had Mitsuhide, but we also got Nobunaga, who is the leader of the Horse Worm Clan. So these are always pretty interesting characters, usually at the time of their release. They're really pushing the envelope with the mechanics, and sometimes with the power level as well. So I'm really excited to take a look at these today and decided to make this video, even though there's some information we don't have about their kits yet, such as their SP costs and exactly how they work, if they have any altered combos or anything like that, as well as their damage modifiers. I decided to make it anyway because I think the anticipation for this New Year's event is really high, as well as for the banner, and there's just a lot happening the rest of the week. So tomorrow we get the event itself. The day after, we get this month in Dragalia Lost, and I'll probably want to do some summoning on the showcase of my own, at least at some point after that. So we're going to talk about the showcase today, but in case you aren't aware, you can see the event preview page in-game now. It looks like this character on the right here, I think this is Kuzunoha, is going to be available for free. She seems to be a fox kitsune onmyoji, who works for Seimei, one of Seimei's retainers. I say that she's probably going to be available for free because in this raid picture, it looks like she's the character who's depicted here, and that's usually the raid welfare unit. Also, this boss looks like a color swap or reskin of the dragon that we're going to take a look at on this summon showcase. Otherwise, as for the event details, it sounds exciting. I mean, it's the culmination of a couple of years worth of New Year's events and some non-New Year's events that alluded to the happenings in Hinamoto. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And there are several characters who are in the trailer for the event that don't appear either in this blurb or on the showcases. So it seems like they might be NPCs only for now, but still, it looks like it's going to have a really deep cast as far as events go. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Probably make a video on that in the next couple days. And let's start by looking at part 1 for these two different showcases, and then we'll look at part 2. One thing I really appreciate is they were very explicit with details on these, and they actually told us explicitly up front what's on the different parts. That's something we always haven't gotten in the past, so I'm glad that they've done that here. But at the end of the day, I do also have to be a little critical because having these banners split up into two parts is definitely not consumer friendly. This is a trend we saw last year with Monster Hunter, Dash of Disaster, and it took place well into the year and continued throughout the year as well. Like later on in the year, we had other two-part banners as well. So yeah, it's not a good thing from a consumer standpoint. It would definitely be better if these characters were all available on one banner. Dragalia Lost isn't like other games where the characters who are on an appearance rate up share the appearance rate up percentage across them. Usually what happens in Dragalia is when multiple characters are on an appearance rate up on one banner, then everything else off focus has a lower chance of appearing. So unfortunately, by wishing for these to be together, like that could be a monkey's paw wish. Maybe they'll put them together but lower the appearance rates for both characters. That would also be kind of bad. But yeah, this is kind of unfortunate. It puts you in a difficult position where you might have to choose between these showcases. Luckily, we do know that we're getting free tenfold summons on both showcases. So at the very least, make sure you're doing those free tenfolds, logging in daily to collect those. And by the end of the duration of the first showcase, part 1, you can make a more informed decision. Did you already pull Seimei in your free tenfolds? If that's the case, Gozu Tenno is going to be featured on both banners, so you can safely save your resources for the second banner. This is the type of difficult decision making that you may have to make on these showcases with resources a little bit tight, but thankfully those free tenfolds coming in and a lot of Wormit coming in recently as well. So let's read through some of what's written in red here. The newly added 5-star adventurer Seimei and 5-star dragon Gozu Tenno will also appear in the upcoming Cursed Connections Part 2 Summon Showcase, but of the two, only the dragon Gozu Tenno will be featured in that showcase, meaning only Gozu Tenno will have a rate up. Newly added limited time featured dragon and adventurer Seimei, 5-star flame wand, dragon Gozu Tenno, flame. In this Summon Showcase, the following limited time adventures and dragons will make their return. These adventures and dragons are not featured in this showcase. What that means when they say featured is they don't have an appearance rate up. They're just randomly in the pool of characters you could get off focus. They will also appear in the upcoming Cursed Connections Part 2 Summon Showcase, but they will not be featured in that showcase either. So these characters could potentially break your pity. They're going to be available as part of the summoning pool, but they're not on an appearance rate up. And this is kind of what I've been afraid of with the expanded pool of limited adventurers as the game goes on. This is why I ended up summoning for Dragonyule Victor and Dragonyule Lily, because my worry is if they come back in the future on a future Dragonyule banner, they're just going to be thrown in on the banner but not actually have an appearance rate up. And if that's the case, then they're basically totally random as far as whether or not you'll succeed in pulling them. Like these past New Year's characters, right now, it doesn't look like there's any way to particularly target them just by summoning, except maybe they'll be redeemable via worm sigils. And if they're just redeemable via worm sigils, then why not just try summon them on their original banner they were on? It's a little different here because at that time worm sigils weren't available, but like with Dragonyule, Lily, and Victor, that's why I decided to go for them, because if they come back in the future, but that means I'd have to worm sigil them anyway, then I'd rather go for them when they're actually on a rate up. So all that to say, you really want to think hard if you're chasing one of these past year's Zodiac characters who are limited time. Maybe a little bit less so with the 4 stars, but we did see a lot of people go for Halloween Lowen, who wasn't on a rate up on the Halloween Gala remix, and they got punished, did not get Lowen. Lowen at the time was not redeemable via worm sigils. And here's some info on worm sigils, so let's read that next. Worm sigils may only be redeemed in the Summon Showcase from which they are earned. So that's trying to tell you that worm sigils earned from the Cursed Connections Part 1 showcase cannot be redeemed in Part 2. Remember, your worm sigils, your sparking material, it doesn't carry over across banners, and technically the Part 1 and Part 2 makes this 2 different banners. The 5-star adventurer Seimei will not be eligible for redemption using worm sigils from the Cursed Connections Part 2 showcase. So basically they're separating this to try probably make as much revenue as possible. I can't imagine that there's any other motivation for doing this. Maybe it's like aesthetically more appealing to kind of filler out more weeks with different banners. That could be part of it too from a marketing standpoint. It's like we constantly have new banners coming in rather than having one banner with everything. But yeah, so that's very unfortunate. So you can't just save for the second banner, spend all your resources, and spark Seimei. You probably need to split your resources across the banners if you want to try to get everything. So my recommendation on this is do your free summons on the first one, see where you're at. At that point, you might have to weigh, do you really like Seimei versus the character who's featured on the other banner? And make a decision to summon based on that. Like, you could summon for Seimei there and hope that you pull the other character with your free tenfolds. That is possible. But one thing that's not mentioned about the worm sigils here, they call out that you can't redeem Seimei on the second showcase. They don't say anything about these returning characters. So even though it's not explicitly said, my expectation is if they're going to put these on here as bait, they'll probably let you worm sigil for them. That's my expectation. I think these will be available on both via worm sigils, both banners. If they're not, then the future prospects of limited time units start to look a lot more dicey. Like, when are you ever going to pick these up other than just randomly off focus on this banner? That doesn't seem very good. So I really think that they should be available via worm sigils at a minimum, but it is still a heavy investment, 300 free-to-play summons or 150 paid summons to worm sigil or spark a character. So a lot to consider here. I would say the good thing, you get your free tenfold, you can make a more informed decision as the event and as the banners unfold. So make sure to try to do that. Each of these lasts about a week. So let's take a look at Seimei. Then we'll get into Gozu Tenno, and then we'll look at, on the other showcase, we'll preview this, Yoshitsune, and probably not the Yoshitsune you remember from the event trailer. Alright, so let's start off with Seimei, our new Worm Clan leader for the Ox. Nothing is impossible for me, for I've mastered Onmyodo. So Seimei is the leader of the Ox Worm Clan, one of the 12 that rule the eastern island nation of Hinamoto. He is a genius Onmyoji, a wielder of magical power called Onmyodo. Highly skilled, he prefers to work alone. Gozu Tenno is his packed worm. Love his artwork, it's really gorgeous. The full portrait is beautiful. The color, his expression, this is a character that to me is a 10 out of 10. Like, this is going to appeal to a lot of players in the way that Ieyasu did. And yeah, I'm loving it. I really like Seimei here. I'm excited to see what his personality is like when we get the event. And he is a flame wand, but has some interesting properties as far as the co-ability and chain co-ability. So let's look at those first, and then we'll get into skills and abilities. For the co-ability, it's actually Mega Man's co-ability. Mega Man also a flame wand. He was released before we got the Manicaster weapon type, so that's probably why, and wasn't retconned to become a flame Manicaster. But Overdrive, Punisher, Engage, Accelerator, very rare co-ability, with Mega Man being the only one who has it right now, and Mega Man never having had a rerun, even though he's welfare, means that a lot of players don't have access to something like this. So really cool to see them bringing this back, and in fact, bringing it back with an offensively oriented, or at least, neutral, more offensively oriented than Mega Man, chain co-ability with giving extra buff skill time. That's the first time we're seeing buff skill time in the flame element as well on the chain co-ability. And in this case, it's associated with the combo count, but this regular co-ability without the chain co-ability was already good enough that for content like Master Difficulty Volk's Wrath, where Volk is in overdrive a large portion of the match, that this co-ability would be useful and was often used. Also, for other cheese clears, sometimes you'll use Mega Man off element in your backline to try deplete the overdrive gauge and break the enemy faster. So that's not uncommon with like Veronica runs, Mitsuba and Karina runs. So just having access to this co-ability is pretty valuable by itself. And this combination is nicely offensive. It's something that makes this character really stand out as like a higher caliber quality character, being a Zodiac character. So the skills here, Onmyoji Incantation and Onmyodo Exorcism. We'll start with the Incantation. So this is interesting. If the user does not have an active Flame Shikigami, summons a Flame Shikigami for 40 seconds. So I'm guessing that's sort of like a little ghost or like a familiar. And if the user has an active Flame Shikigami, grants the user a 1-use shield that nullifies damage up to 20% of the user's max HP. This shield does not stack with any other shields of the same type. So when you have your Shikigami active, the shield seems a little bit unremarkable, but when you don't, 40 seconds is a long summon. The Flame Shikigami will automatically attack foes, but each attack will deplete the user's Shikigami gauge. Once the Flame Shikigami's attacks hit enemies 15 times, it will level up to level 2. Upon leveling up, its 40-second timer will reset, and its attacks will deal more damage. In addition, its attacks will reduce enemies' defense by 10% for 10 seconds. The defense reduction will not stack, and the Shikigami's automatic damage will not be treated as skill damage. Fascinating. So the closest thing I can think to this is Fig, the summon that Gala Laxi does, that kind of just auto attacks, but this actually can level up. So I love the idea of this. It's kind of like having your little Pokemon at your side that evolves or something. Very cool, very different. We have not had really a summoner type character. The other thing that I can think of that's sort of similar to this is how over damage works for Dragonule Lily and Yukata Cassandra. They both have sort of passive damage over time firing off from the entire team. But this actually sounds like it'll be like a standalone, a little Shikigami that follows you around and attacks enemies. I mean, that's really fun. That's pretty cool. No idea as far as how much damage potential is here. It seems like, in general, 40 seconds is a pretty long duration, so I would expect this to be more suited for long fights. It's damage over time. This doesn't seem particularly good for like the time attack setting that we've recently seen if you're really trying to push damage. If the best returns on this are because it's spread out across up to 40 seconds in level 1, and then that resets up to 40 seconds in level 2, then I don't see this making a difference in like that context. But for longer duration fights, like let's say Legend Volk, that is a battle that can take a while, and you still want to try to clear it quickly to minimize the time spent in Berserk, but it's still just a long fight in general. Even the fastest clear times, well, I guess the fastest are like 1 minute, so those probably don't count. But even like the Ezolith clear times with 2 Gown and Krenna and no Marth, those still take like 2 minutes, so this could have some potential in that context perhaps. And the defense reduction is certainly nice. Pretty cool. I mean, I like that they're pushing the envelope with the way that this is a very different type of mechanic. We're not going to really know how good it is, in my opinion, until we see, like, does he have unique combos? What is the gauge like? What is the damage mod on your little Shikigami companion? But let's move on to Onmyoto Exorcism. This skill can only be used while the user has an active Flame Shikigami and consumes the user's Flame Shikigami. Oh no! Deals flame damage to enemies directly ahead, reduces enemy defense by 10% for 20 seconds, and inflicts Scorched Rend. Nice. So only the second character to do Scorched Rend after Gala Leonidas. If the user's Flame Shikigami is level 2, the skill will deal more damage and also dispel 1 buff from each target. And this is shareable. No idea what the shareable variant will do. It'll probably, my guess, it literally does everything, but you don't spin the Shikigami. So I would think that the shared variant reduces defense, inflicts Scorched Rend, and dispels as well, and does more damage. So interesting. So this makes you think that, like, maybe you'll get the skill up. I don't know. Like, do you want to wait until you get the dispel and the more damage, or do you just use this on cooldown, or does it sort of line up to where your Shikigami tends to hit level 2 around the time that the skill gets charged? Those are all the questions I have with this. Your SP generation rate on the respective skills is going to matter a lot here as far as the sequencing that you want to do, I think. But in principle, a long duration defense down, even though it's only a 10% defense down, is kind of nice. Scorched Rend, good affliction, and dealing more damage and having access to dispel. Just having access to dispel is kind of nice. It doesn't have to be super high frequency for Legend Volk, but having it is pretty nice. I don't know. I think I like what I'm seeing here, but a little bit hard to say. Like, one thing that definitely stands out is I could see Seimei being a really good AI, but it depends a lot on how he's scripted and how his AI implementation is. This is something that we don't often discuss in the banner reviews, but like I allude to the fact that we don't have damage, we don't know the SP costs when I'm doing these reviews, but also the AI behavior is something that's a little bit harder to glean even once you do see the damage mods. If you're trying to do solo play, this looks right now like a character that could potentially be a really good backliner for solo Legend Volk. You have a really nice co-ability to help get you through the second phase, and if you also have Leonidas, like, you could get multiple breaks easily. But even if you don't have Leonidas, just in Volk, having ranged characters in your back line and one melee character tends to be pretty good as far as the formation. The ranged characters are going to stand a little bit further away from you. It's going to make it easier for them to survive part 1 or phase 1 of that battle. So when I look at this, the fact that there's also Dispel available, some defense downs, and this passive damage over time with the Shikigami, as well as giving himself a shield, like, to me, this could easily slot into a Volk solo team for Legend. Even if you're running just Yuden in the lead slot, maybe you have a bow like a Cerise, then you could throw on Seimei and throw on a healer. It seems like it'd be a very effective team. So that's probably the use case I see for this right now. And also, Seimei might just be good in co-op Legend Volk also. But as of now, just looking at this, I don't think it would have any implications for time attack, but it seems like we'll be done with the Volk-related time attack by the time Seimei is out anyway. So let's look at the chain. No, we looked at the chain code, but let's look at the regular abilities. Master of Shikigami 2 grants the user a Shikigami gauge and grants them a unique Force Strike that, while charging, deals damage and gradually fills this gauge. Okay, so now we have a unique Force Strike element. It deals damage and gradually fills the Shikigami gauge. So even though this lasts a whopping 40 seconds, every time it attacks, it depletes the user's Shikigami gauge. So maybe in order to actually make it last the full 40 seconds and to enable it to level up by hitting enemies 15 times, maybe you have to be spamming this unique Force Strike so that you can continuously replenish your Shikigami gauge. Not sure. So Stun Res 100% is fine. And then Shikigami Vivifier 2 fills the Shikigami gauge by 50% every time the Dragon gauge fills by 10%. Alright, and no mention of unique combos or anything. Very mysterious character. The fact that you have to be filling, like 2 ability slots are spent on filling the Shikigami gauge, definitely makes me think that it's not going to be that easy to keep the Shikigami gauge filled and just passively attack with your Shikigami. It seems like there is certainly an element here of active gauge management, and hopefully the AI would be able to handle that. Alright, so now let's talk about Gozu Tenno. I'm not going to eat you, I merely want to be helpful. Already seen a lot of fan art of this character. This seems to be a fan favorite as well. And this is the character that I alluded to, the raid boss looking like a variant of. The Dragon of the Ox and one of 12 who serve Amaterasu. Though he looks scary, he is actually very caring. If he hears of a hungry person to the east or west, he'll be off in a flash to deliver candy or food to the individual in need. Very charming story. Yeah, I see a little bit of the ox motif here with the horns, and this looks like some type of, I'm not sure, it looks like it's coming from his shoulder pad, but it kind of looks like a tail as well on the right side. Let's read about his skills and abilities. So, Infernal Charge, his skill deals flame damage to enemies in a line and lowers their flame res by 10% for the remainder of the quest. This resistance reduction will not stack. Resistance reduction is really nice. We saw it on Midgard Stormer Zero. Just, he's not Gala, but he feels Gala. But Midgard Stormer Zero has reduction for wind res, and now we have reduction for flame res. The fact that it's the remainder of the quest, in particular when you're fighting against Volk, this is really big, I think. This could easily make the difference between clearing before or after Berserk for a regular team comp. And even then, within Berserk, any amount of damage reduction or damage increase that you can get because your damage is so reduced is going to be nice. And yeah, this seems like, if you don't have Gala Mars, a great dragon to bring to the team, going to contribute and help the rest of your team. And it's a dragon that I could see like healers running if you're not using Popstar Siren, or Gaunen Krenna, the double Gaunen Krenna comps. Really nice skill, and the abilities basically look on par with what we've seen from these Reborn dragons. So 70% strength is what we saw on Reborn Zephyr and Reborn Poseidon. And then you also have this ability to get this personal 30% extra modifier against wind-attuned enemies for 30 seconds. if you charge a Force Strike for 3 or more seconds. So I assume you can just sort of leave it charged and leave it holding if you don't have a unique Force Strike in the way that Seimei does. But this is actually might be better even than what you see on Zephyr and Poseidon. Theirs is tied to Dragon Gauge. This just being tied to Force Strike, you can kind of pull this out on command, make sure that you always have uptime on it. Yeah, I don't know. This looks like a really strong dragon, combines the best elements of some of the other elements, good dragons. We needed a good dragon in Flame alternative to Mars because Mars is so powerful that having Mars or not having Mars can make a really big difference in what you're able to do in clear and how accepted you are in co-op. That sort of changed a little bit with time attack and the focus on really fast clear times, because for some of those, depending on the character, Konohanasaki is actually a better dragon, but for characters like Student Maribel that ended up being used in some of the fastest clears, well, Mars is actually pretty effective because she already has a really high skill damage bracket as well. So, yeah, I don't know. This is really impressive. This is like a new generation of dragon power level. I think that this is better than Daikokuten, our New Year's Dragon from last year, and the New Year's Dragon from the previous year, Marushiten, has just been sadly left in the dust by more recent New Year's Dragons. But this looks really strong to me, and sick inclusion for those trying to tackle Legend Volk for sure. So Gozu Tenno and Seimei, that's pretty much all I have to say about them. Really would be fun to try out Seimei. That's maybe the character here I'm most interested in. But on the Part 2 showcase, Yoshitsune is a close second, with her being, I believe, our first ever close range mana caster. She's a water element mana caster, and it says the standard attacks of the close range mana caster arc outwards, making it ideal for close range crowd control. By attacking foes at point blank range, you can do even more damage. Interesting. So it's our first time actually seeing a character like this, at least in the regular Dragalia Lost content. I think the Alberian Battle Royale, the mana caster there, technically is also the close range variant, but I'm not sure on that. And similar disclaimers on this showcase. Yep, looks like they're exactly the same as they were before. This one also lasts about a week or so. It's the week following Seimei showcase. And our featured adventurer is Yoshitsune. This old soldier never dies. She will forever fight on. So first of all, another really striking design. I think you could see sort of on her shoulder pad here some of the rooster influence. Maybe a little bit with her hair as well, the way it's up. But yeah, just I already know a lot of people are going to want to summon for her. And very different looking than she was in the trailer. In the trailer, we found out that Yoshitsune, the leader of the Rooster clan, was sort of an older woman, and honestly, I would have loved to summon for that variant. That's a character type that we don't have a lot of, but of course there was also some silhouetted character with Katana and Manicaster, and a lot of speculation. Who is it? Who's it going to be? Of course, it ends up being the younger version or variant of Yoshitsune, the transformation she does when she goes into battle. So similar trope space here to Cassandra with the sort of eternal beauty and youth. Of course, we already mentioned water element, Manicaster, close range style, the leader of the Rooster Worm clan, one of the 12 that rule the island nation of Hinamoto. She travels the world as a distinguished mercenary, and though she's over 100 years old, she reverts to a youthful appearance in battle. I will say, for her being 100 years old, I would greatly prefer this youthful appearance to, the 1,000-year-old dragon youthful appearance. That would just be untoward. So at least it's like this. I don't know. Anyway, as for her skills, co-ability, chain co-ability, and abilities, we'll start with the skills this time around. Kumasaka Flash begins preparing a powerful shot, after which the skill will deal water damage to enemies directly ahead. If while preparing this shot the user is hit by an attack that can be avoided with the damage immunity provided by skills, this skill will also deal water damage to surrounding enemies, and for 30 seconds, increase the user's attack rate by 15%. This attack rate increase will not stack. Very cool. One of the first times I think that they've mentioned this damage immunity provided by skills. This is what we commonly refer to as iframes. Basically, I think what this means is if a red AoE attack is happening or an untelegraphed attack that you can iframe is happening, and you use this skill to iframe it, then you're going to get a bonus. You're going to get some extra attack rate. Really cool to actually reward that and give you an incentive to dodge or iframe with the skill specifically. It lasts a good 30 seconds as well, so I think that you could plan to iframe with this, and once you do, you have a window where you can just spam this on cooldown rather than trying to iframe with it. Your attack rate will have already increased and it won't stack and increase any further. Her second skill, Shinao Strike, deals water damage to the target and nearby enemies. Very straightforward, shareable with the cost of 4. It must have a pretty decent damage modifier, I would reckon. Like, it only costs 4 to share, so who knows? But if this just does damage, like, it's probably got to do a decent amount of damage to be worth using. I don't know if it'll be worth sharing, but if it's part of her kit and worth using, it's probably at least okay by contemporary standards. Her co-ability, Gauge Accelerator plus 20%, and then chain co-ability, Water Dodge equals Strength plus 10%. If a team member is attuned to water, it increases their strength by 10% for 15 seconds each time they dodge an attack. After activating, this ability will not activate again for 15 seconds. Benefits your whole team. Alright, this one's fascinating because what does it mean to dodge an attack in Dragalia Lost? Does this mean iframing with a skill, like in her first skill? But if so, maybe it would say the damage immunity provided by skills, avoiding an attack with the damage immunity provided by skills. So I don't think that's what it means to dodge an attack. But does it just mean dodge rolling? Like, if you just do a dodge roll and the enemy's not even attacking, are you going to get a 10% strength buff? Or do you have to specifically dodge roll through some type of red AoE? Do you have to dodge roll through like an untelegraphed slash or something? These are the questions with this that make it very hard to evaluate right now. This actually seems like it'd be difficult to sort of code as well, but maybe it's related to her first skill, because I wouldn't have thought they would make something like this either that benefits you when you iframe. That's kind of impressive. So not sure yet how this works. Like another example of dodging, some purple skills or purple moves that enemies use, you can jump over them and you technically dodge them. Does that count for this chain co-ability? I think this is, again, a cool direction though to see with chain co-abilities. Gauge Accelerator is more neutral. Like, I would expect in the future that we do see mana casters with powerful chain co-abilities and the Gauge Accelerator co-ability, because Gauge Accelerator is kind of in the vein of Dragon's Haste or something. Like, it's a good co-ability, it's an offensive co-ability, not a defensive one, but it's also not like strength or skill damage that just straight up increase your damage output. So I think that it's good to see a combination like this. For abilities, Yoshitsune has Nimble Riposte 2. Dodging will carry out an additional attack toward the target. In addition, dodging an enemy attack will increase the user's attack rate by 10% for 30 seconds. Interesting. So this also relies on dodging an enemy attack. And it says dodging will carry out an additional attack toward the targets, which I guess by that they mean rolling. Like, I guess that's dodging now. And for mana casters, it does look a little bit different when they do that, so makes sense, I guess. This attack rate increase will not stack, and after activating, it won't activate again for 5 seconds. Cool. So it doesn't stack with itself. Not sure if that also means it doesn't stack with this attack rate increase or not, but induces a little bit of tension here potentially, in that you both want to iframe enemy moves as well as just do regular dodges on them if these do work together to get extra attack rate. For Affliction res, Yoshitsune has Stun res 100%, and then she has Flurry Strength plus 20%. So honestly, looking at her compared to Seimei, I think the most interesting thing about her is just that she's a close range mana caster and we haven't had that play style. She certainly has the potential, like maybe these will just have good damage mods, but she seems a lot more reliant on that as far as her virtues and her potential team contribution. She doesn't have any afflictions going on or dispel, and team slots are tight for autoing Master and Expert difficulty Ayaha and Datoha, especially if you're trying to run with one or more gold Fafnirs. So the fact that she can't reduce any of their buff stacking that they do or afflict them, it's probably going to be hard to fit her onto a team is what I'm guessing. And the water element just, it's so stacked with cheese characters like Karina, Mitsuba, even Lapis. Like if Karina gets a nerf or something, Lapis or Xander can be okay. They just don't have the skill prep, so they're not going to be as effective off element and for all types of content. But like water has some insane scaling powers, so the fact that she doesn't seem to have any really scaling here, to me, could be a drawback. The stun res as well, a little bit weaker than burn res, all things considered. I don't know. This is a character I don't really see a large future for her, unfortunately. But if you want to try out the close range Manicaster, this could be your best chance to do so. It's our first one. So a little bit difficult to evaluate once again. With Seimei, I'm fairly confident you could just throw him into a Legend solo team and he'll be perfectly fine for that, because you can use like 3-star characters for that. They're fine. I don't think he's as good as at Time Attack. I think he's excellent for Master, and he's probably good in co-op. But the Legend Volk meta, I don't think he'll necessarily change anything, but he, along with Gozu Tenno, might make it so that you see more regular comps because of this nice flame res reduction. So a little bit hard to say on these without knowing exactly how much damage they do. But in general, I think unless their damage is something like out of the park, then it doesn't really matter all that much. The metas for that content for Volk as well as Ayaha and Datoha are kind of solidified at this point. In Ayaha and Datoha, you can bring pretty much anything in co-op if you're not doing Karina specifically. So like you could probably bring in Yoshitsune for co-op and have a really good time playing as her, and you'd be totally fine to do that. But for solo and auto, I don't really see it as much. Alright, and we already talked about Gozu Tenno, also featured in the showcase. So for that reason, remember, like, don't unbind or max unbind your Gozu Tenno right away with Sunlight Stones, even though it seems like a good dragon. You could always get it in your free tenfolds on the second part showcase as well. Alright everyone, I think that is going to do it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Curse Connections Part 1 and Part 2. I will definitely be summoning just as somebody really interested in these characters, want to read their stories, interested in the lore of this event, really hyped about it. Looking forward to checking it out tomorrow. Thank you as always for watching. Let me know if you're going to be summoning in the comments below. Take care, and I'll see you next time.